Ho 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 ho! Ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and fellow League of Legends enjoyers and haters, or people who are mentally deranged like me and can't seem to get rid of this game, or the constant 2 week patch notes that I sometimes struggle mentally to do. Either way, we are here once again with the sole purpose of having my Giga Brain go over the changes and see if they're good, bad, hilarious, funny, useful, or if they're just going to change numbers by 5 and 10. Now, my assumption is this isn't really anything crazy. We're kind of past the big summer event. The summer event is almost nearing a close. Not exactly there, but we are getting there. And that basically means that nothing crazy should be happening. In the pro scene, I don't really know what's going on because I don't keep up with pro anymore. So unless we have MSI or something, I doubt many things are going to change this patch. So let's just get into it, and then hopefully one day I can free myself from the shackles of doing patch notes, at the very least making them over an hour long. Because I have shit to do. But I like doing patch notes somewhat. But either way, let's see what we're doing here. So, celebrate greatness with patch 14.16 and the triumphant T1. Yippee! They won again! And they're finally getting their skins almost, not even almost, half a year later. Over half a year later. Wow. Definitely over half a year later. Because they win in, what is it, October? September, October? And right now it's August 13th, so over 8 months ago at least. Anyway, in this week's patch, we got quite a few changes lined up for you. They say that every time. Let's start with one of the greatest lineups of all time, T1, which I do believe is true, whose skins have hit the rift this patch. Not to be confused with Faker's Ari skin. Now he's getting even more skins. Oh no. Oh, excuse me. That is not included. We've also got a few updates to improve matchmaking quality, the Split 2 end and Split 3 start dates. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, oh yeah, that's in September. But we're already midway through August, and I'm like, oh my god, like, what the fuck? Time is passing by so quickly. But the older you get, the quicker it goes, so we'll be there in no time. A new Mythic Shop rotation, we brought Mastery Points back to the loading screen, every last one. Yippee! Those are pretty good. On the gameplay side, check out the Death Timer and Death Guard changes down below. No longer will you be punished for solo killing your lane opponent, only for them to teleport back and freeze the wave on you. Nice. We're also continuing to nerf ADC itemizations. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. As they've been dominating the upper echelons of solo queue and pro play, which we'll get into that. For individual champions, we're bringing up several who have been weak due to over nerfs or pro play, adjusting Senna to function better as a pure support. We'll get into that. Giving Kiana more early agency and a lone nerf to Corki, who's still outperforming for the best of the best in mid lane. Which, if you remember, they tried to put him in bot lane and it didn't work. It's just a straight buff to mid. Don't worry, Arena and ARAM mains, we've got you covered in this patch too. I'm really waiting for Arena to just be permanent. And the biggest thing I want, the biggest thing is just make it so we can earn chests and mastery in Arena. If they do that, I will tongue it, I will finger it, I will kiss it, I will lick it, I will do everything to it. But until then, I'm basically stuck on Rift and ARAM. So anyway. Oh, and it's your last chance to play our newest game mode, Swarm, which sadly is probably going away soon. But if you're like me, you've basically done every single thing in it. Literally, I've played the game mode to death. I love it. It's amazing. So they're definitely right here. Go play it. So if you're on the fence about trying it or wanted to do a victory lap, now's the time. True. If you had a chance to play the new TFT set, I don't care because I'm not going over TFT. So we see a little bit of the skins here, but we'll go over those more at the end. And, I'm always going to say this. RIP, Surrender 20. But thankfully, because Surrender 20 is not here anymore, not only do I struggle to keep up on League news sometimes, but I am surprised when the skins come out because they're a complete new shock to me. So anyway, Anima Squad will be leaving the game mode rotation on August 19th, and that is in about less than 1 week. It's about 6 days, so there's that. So here's the end and start times for the splits. So for us over here in America, NA, we have NA1, here we go. Does this say anything? Oh, here we go. September 24th. Basically September 24th. Wow, so again, pretty close by. Nice. And then it's going to start immediately, like 1 minute after on the 25th. Okay, cool. Matchmaking improvements. Let's see what they've did. I feel like over time, matchmaking definitely has gone a little better, but let's see what they're doing now. Recently, we've seen a lot of player feedback around issues surrounding the balance of blue side and red side off-roll balance. This patch, we're making changes to better match off-rolls, including matching secondaries as if they were off-rolls. We've also made some improvements to make team versus team balance feel more fair and not repeatedly place the same players on the same teams, especially at the top of the ladder. So this is always the kind of struggle Riot has, especially, again, in the higher elos. Because there's such a small pool, you have to balance two things, and these two things are conflicting with each other. Number one is player size, and number two is how fast you get into a game, aka how balanced the game is. So you sacrifice one for the other. Essentially, to find better games, you have to wait longer because you either have to expand the pool or wait for people to get on or get off or just match the teams better. But people usually, now again, this is where do you trust people? I don't know. But usually people say they are willing to wait longer. Now, how much longer, that really is up for debate. But they are willing to wait longer to get into better games. They don't want to wait 5 minutes to get into a shitfest. They'd rather wait 10 minutes to get into an actual good game, relatively speaking. So I'm kind of curious to see what direction Riot's going in. It sounds like they're going into the more like, oh, you'll wait more, but you'll get a better game. But let's see. Increased off-roll parity. Both teams should now have a more similar amount of players auto-filled or placed into their secondary roles, which is always good. Reduced how large LP gaps could be between players in a game. Good. Decrease the red versus blue side imbalance, especially in higher MMRs. I feel like that should just be a staple, but I guess the fact that they're doing it now, better late than never. Cool. I don't really know the effects of these, nor do they have specifics, but I'm sure it'll get better, right? Whoopee. Boosting and ranked manipulation penalties. Let's see this. So this is probably more easier for them to do now since they introduced Vanguard, which is the kernel level anti-cheat, which basically reviews everything and provides instant penalties and instant rewards too. And I actually experienced this very, very recently, believe it or not. Recently in my game, we had an AFK. We remade the game, and because of that, my team basically got a whole bunch of what is it called? A whole bunch of XP for, oh god, my phone's disconnecting. A whole bunch of XP for the next games. I think we got like 2 games of XP, so not actually a lot, but it was something, and I was surprised. I was like, wow, that was instantaneous. That guy got like punished, and we got a reward. So this is probably really from Vanguard. But either way, let's see. As of this patch, we'll be increasing the penalties for first-time offenders participating in malicious form of ranked manipulation, such as account boosting, win trading, and deranking. Thank God. Streamers deal with this. I wish I was a part of this, but a lot of high-end streamers deal with this a lot, especially win trading. Previously, our warning ban for the first-time offenders was short enough so players at high ranks could return before the decay kicked in. Now the penalty will last a full 30 days, ensuring your ass gets decayed too. So not only will you not be able to do anything, I think, for 30 days, but also you're not going to be able to do it to the same people because you're going to get demoted. Thank God. Either way, the penalty for a second offense is still a permanent ban. We take this behavior very seriously, so everyone should only get a single warning. I feel like now, especially with Vanguard being in place, they're a lot more accurate with their bans too. Obviously, there's always going to be some people who are wrongly banned, but you can't have a perfect world. Now, the biggest thing here, and the biggest hard thing they have to combat, is this is a free-to-play game. Unless they IP ban you, which could result in some issues, because if pro players are playing in a hotel, the whole hotel gets IP banned. So not only can they not play, anyone who goes to the hotel can't play League either. Unless they call the hotel or the internet provider or God knows what. But either way, the biggest hard thing about this is you could just make a new account. Unless they IP ban you, you just make a new account and you're good. You have an alt account, whatever, right? So they really have to combat it, but I'm glad they're taking the stance of we're not fucking around, and it's good. Because the more easy it is to make an account and just get into ranked, the more fuckery there's going to be. There's not really any threat of losing anything significant. Unless you have stuff on your account, which at that point it matters. Unless you're like me, where you have, you know, just to kind of show off here, all this loot that I'm going to open one day in the future, God knows when. But when that happens, that video is going to be like 3 fucking hours. But anyway, so I'm glad they're taking that stance. Career stats profile. We introduced the career stats page because there were a lot of players looking to dive into the nitty-gritty details of their match history. I like this But there was a few years ago, and now we have lots of third-party partners that have created tons of helpful and detailed tools. Interesting. Usually what Riot does is they just take that and then they add it into the game themselves. This is where I'll give you an example. U.GG, it would tell you the level order. What did League do? They added recommended leveling order to your abilities. They would highlight it and they would show you, oh, what do people usually level next? Well, it's not always accurate, especially if you're going an off build or you want to max something else. For the most part, it would be pretty good. So usually what happens is they take whatever is outside the game and they put it in the game. Especially with the recommended item builder too. That's another thing. But let's see what they're doing here. More in depth with improvement tips. We're still investing in finding ways to help players improve in League, like with our bot AI update, but as less than 3% of players use the career stats page. That's crazy that they know that. We are making the decision to remove it from the client. If you're looking for other ways to view this information, here are some of our third-party partners. Wow. So obviously Mobilytics, I've used that before. League of Graphs I've never used. OPGG is probably the most popular one. UGG is my favorite. Tracker Network I've never used, and Blitz is, I think, kind of a sham. But that's cool. So career stats profile. Where even is the career stats profile? Is it here? Yeah, it is here. Holy shit. You can see I didn't even use this shit. Man, I'm sad they're taking this out the game. You can see my AD would raise 50% though, man. It's because I get trolled. And I've only played Lilia Jungle and lost. Wow. That is interesting. But anyway, sad they're taking it out, but they're not wrong. Not many people use it, so many people won't even realize that it's gone, even if they removed it. So finally, moving on to champion balance. What do I think of Azir? I think Azir is pretty weak. What are they doing? We have some relatively straightforward changes for Azir. They're giving him some resilience. And last round was pro-focused. Okay, so we're rolling them back. All right, nice. So his health regen's going up, his armor's going up. Base. The lower it is, the more it matters. Azir is decently better, but nothing crazy. Azir is pretty weak, though. Corki. I have big issues with Corki, and it's not really big issues with him. It's more about what the player base does to him. So I think if Riot really, really wants... And this is the hard part, right? Because I think it's just inherent to some ADs that they'll just go mid, and the main offenders of this are Corki, obviously, Tristana, and Lucian. And what do all these champions have in common? Maybe not Corki so much, but Lucian and Tristana for sure. They have, number one, mobility. All of these champions have mobility. Number two, they have decent good early game, pretty good early game, but they scale because obviously they're ADCs. Now, Tristana probably scales really hard. Corki, I think, scales probably one of the hardest, but Tristana makes up for it with range and stuff. Lucian kind of just fizzles out a little bit. He doesn't really keep up, but he's still pretty decent. But, this is where these ADs pretty much all have mobility. Now, Corki was a weird thing. He also built AP. I honestly don't know how to fix this problem of ADCs not going bot, aka Corki, because they obviously wanted him to go bot by changing all of his scalings, making him more AD focused. They want him to go crit AD, and I think he's still really good. I personally would love to play him AD, and I kind of do. However, I don't know how to stop him from not being good as AD and being good mid. I think it's nearly impossible. Like, you just maybe have to like change his kit at that point, but I don't know. But either way, it doesn't take Major Tom for ground control to realize Corki's currently flying a bit too high. And I think Corki is actually really fucking strong. Especially in pro, they know it. But I think even in regular, he literally does 20% extra damage as true damage. And I believe it could crit, which is insanity. That is crazy. But let's see what they're doing. So they're nerfing the mana cost of Q, which is whatever, and the cooldown's going up by 1. This hurts slightly. I think this is fine. Because the main way you want to hurt Corki mid as, I guess, abilities, the main way you want to keep him bot powered is obviously auto attack. So I think this is okay going in the right direction. I just don't want them to over nerf him because I do like Corki. Excuse me. He really needs an ASU though. God, is he so fucking outdated. Anyway, moving on. Katarina. Katarina's in a weird spot. I see Katarina's building weird ass shit. Now, usually it's one of two reasons. Either it's niche, it's off meta, or it's like it's hard to itemize against, or there's literally nothing else you could do. It's kind of like the Ezreal situation. It's either Ezreal's good because he's overpowered, overbuffed, or it's because every other ADC kind of sucks cock and you need the mobility. Now, Katarina, I think, is kind of just sucking cock, so let's see what they're going to do. As it stands today, the majority of Cat players are building AP and opting to max Q first, which I think is what they usually did historically. despite Emax and AD on-hit builds being statistically better, but they're probably harder. In order to better match Katarina's freak and how players want to build her, we'll be shifting some of her power from Emax and on-hit builds into Q max AP builds. So they're nerfing the build that's better and buffing the build that most people are going for, I guess, ease of use? Which I actually kind of like. If most people are doing this and they like this and it's not that good, they're buffing it. Relatively. So they're putting more base damage in by a decent amount, and then they're scaling it up by 10% extra. That's pretty fucking good. Now the damage on E, and Q is like really fucking easy too. Damage on E, Shunpo. So you're going down base damage wise, and that's pretty much it. So they're nerfing E for the Q buffs, okay. And the on-hit effectiveness is going slightly down too. So they're basically just putting a lot of power in Q. And I was like, wow, this isn't something to laugh at. 40 base damage with a 10% scaling, but it comes at a cost, so I think it's fair. I think Cat still kind of sucks though, but either way. Talk of one of the mid lane ADCs. Look at him. Lucian. What do I think of Lucian? I think Lucian is decent. I think they nerfed the Lucian-Nami combo a little bit too hard. But granted, it was OP as shit. But we haven't really seen Lucian be in the meta again. And it's weird because he is just straight out better than what he used to be because of his passive on-hit damage. Now, he really, and I think this is the big problem, he really does need to be paired with a Enchanter support because then he can make full utilization of his passive on-hit damage. But a lot of times you don't get that. So I really think, again, it always goes back to the culture of the bot lane being shit. And by culture of the bot lane, I mean supports. But either way, let's see what they're doing. It's been a few years and Lucian's back to terrorizing the mid lane. He always is. Thankfully, we've got some space-specific levers for Lucian that he can only benefit from in bot lane, the passive. So we're pulling them to make him less dominant in mid. We're lowering the wave clear and burst damage in his Q and directly compensating that damage by buffing his passive. So what are they doing? So the vigilance damage is going to 20% total AD instead of 15. And because it's total, that's actually a pretty decent change. That's actually pretty good. And then his Q, how much are they nerfing this? It's going from 10 damage. Okay, cool. That's fine. That is a really good buff to his passive. Not crazy nerf to his Q. That's honestly fine. Nice! Lucian might be seen bot lane again, and hopefully he is, because I shit on him, because he's low range. But either way, Lucian's cool. I actually think he's pretty fun. I like him a lot. Definitely early game, though, and I'm a late game player. Anyway, Orianna. I think Orianna is pretty good, but I don't see her. I think Orianna is kind of niche just because you have to really handle the ball. You have to be a ball master, and not many people are ball masters. So what are they doing? I think she's still pretty good, though. I would not be surprised if we see a nerf. Orianna has remained underperforming a mid lane meta that is largely unfavorable towards her. We're looking to give our favorite ballerina more of a fighting chance. So what are they doing? So her Q, her most important ability in her kit, is going up by 5% AP scaling. Now, normally I would say this is nonsense, but for Orianna it actually matters a lot because this thing is on a really low cooldown. Like, this thing's cooldown is ridiculously low, and buffing it by this much seems like a little bit, but because you're constantly, or you should be, constantly hitting it, it's actually decent. I think this is okay. Is Orianna going to be crazy? No. But if they keep, buffing her low-key, death by 1,000 cuts, or, I don't know the opposite of that. I guess, like, a fucking mending by 1,000 band-aids? Like, I don't know, but she's going to be better, especially if they keep, like, just buffing her in small ways. I already think she's really fucking good, too, personally. Alright, then we have Thunder Thigh Queen Herthel's Kiki. What do we think of Kiki? I think Kiki is probably one of the hardest champs in the game. She's one of the champions that has a lot of different, engages a lot of different, I don't want to say mechanics, but you could do a lot of plays with her that are mechanically difficult, and she has a lot of combos that many people can't do. But if you do them correctly, you should be rewarded, and I've seen some scary things. Now, I think Riot has kind of toned that back a bit too much, so I think Kiana's going to get buffed. But let's see. So, what are they doing? We missed Kiana in our Assassin Sweep last patch, so her time is now. Kiana's in an odd spot where she's both very elite skewed for sure, and late game skewed. Wow, which doesn't normally happen, especially for an Assassin. That's weird. We want to give her much better laning phase, so we're trading some of her late game burst to get there. I feel like they're doing this for everyone. Another goal, we want to give her some fringe jungle capabilities. Ew, they keep doing this shit. I hate this. So her base armor is going up, but it's already decently high, but that's pretty good. So her armor is higher early. That's nice. The damage of her Q is going down base wise, but up bonus AD wise by a good margin. Holy shit, by 15%. And then she's doing more to monsters, so I don't know if her jungle is as fringe anymore, but bonus on hit damage is going down by a good bit. And then her ult, let's see this. Oh my god, there's so many numbers here. Holy shit. It's going down in bonus AD scaling, and the monster cap, if you're using this against monsters for some reason, is getting nerfed. As if your ult hitting monsters really mattered. I don't think that really mattered, but I guess it does. That's such a weird fucking nerf. I mean, again, it's kind of like the Kiana treatment, or not Kiana. What am I saying? It's kind of like the Oriana treatment where she uses her Q a lot. It also gets reset, and to have it go up by a decent amount of this much bonus AD, pretty fucking good, honestly. I think Kiana got a decent buff after this. Okay, and here we go to Senna. Oh boy, Senna is like she's not like in the upper echelon of problem children like Cassante and Yumi, but she's literally right below it. Like I feel like Senna, it's basically just a tug of war. It's almost like Varus except good. Varus, they have to keep buffing him to not being bad. Senna, they have to keep nerfing her to not being good. And again, she's not as much of an issue as Cassante and Yumi, but she's so fucking weird. Like I had to explain it recently to one of my friends who was getting into League because this is how normal ADCs work. This is how normal supports work. But Senna changes that whole thing up, and it's like they really have a very distinct lever on how to do this with Senna. And you know what the lever is, and I don't know if they even know it. It's the lever of the fucking souls. If they make soul generation more optimal by playing support, they're gonna go support. If you make it more optimal by last hitting, you're gonna go AD. So it's like you have to play some weird ass shit with Senna where you make her the support, but she's still the AD, but the support actually CSs and stuff. So you kind of have a dual bot lane of just basically pure damage. And it scales really fucking well. Now, is she a hyper? No. And that's why she's kind of not in the upper echelon of problem children. But she's still really fucking good, but she's so unique. Like, she is one of the iconic champions that people were guessing were going to be in League for a while. Lucian's wife and Viego, those two were like long time standing people who were coming into the game. And she came into the game and she almost like is just fucking everything up balance wise. So I think currently, I mean, there used to be a time where again they would nerf this specific lever or put it back depending on what they wanted. Where again it would dictate if Senna's going ADC and actually last hitting, or if she's going support and just being a dickhead. So right now she's basically in the support phase. She's not really ever going ADC. She's not ever last hitting until I guess you're out of laning phase or you have a sufficient amount of souls. But it's basically, I think, most optimal from what I've seen for Senna to go support, at least right now. So let's see what they're going to do. I like how it literally says all abilities except E adjusted. So what are they doing? Over time, Senna has morphed into a champion who can be the team's primary DPS carry as opposed to a supportive markswoman. And you know what's ironic too? They made her to be able to lane with Lucian, but she pretty much never does that. Right now, the only pros play with her with farming tanks to extract her full power. Exactly. And she's much too strong in coordinated play when teams build around her. Exactly. She's infinite scaling. You get infinite crit, infinite lifesteal, infinite damage, infinite range. Like, holy fucking shit. Now, granted, it takes a while. It's not as OP as I'm making it sound, but still. Meanwhile, the majority of at-home players, like me and you, overwhelmingly pick her as a support when she's significantly weaker. True. This patch, we're buffing her supportive aspects and nerfing her sustained DPS. Oh god, I really hope they don't fuck up the passive. On top of that, we're buffing several AP ratios to make AP, or at least a splash of Ardent Sensor Senna, viable as an alternate build, without pushing her into buying mage or enchanter items. This is not good. This is not going to work. I feel like this ruins the character. They're trying to make her too much of a jack of all trades, where it's like all people want to do is build her damage lethality. It's like, I don't know about this. Finally, we're making a change to Black Cleaver this patch that allows her to always deliver 2 stacks on every attack and Q on an enemy champions, further boosting her performance alongside traditional AD carries. Wow. So attack speed growth is literally getting cut in half. That's pretty bad. Passive absolution. So crit strike per 20 stacks 10 to 8. I think that's fair. I honestly think that's fair. She gains crit out the ass. especially if she builds it too. Now you actually have to choose to build crit to gain more, but this is fine. This is also going to lower how much AD she gets, though, or not AD she gets, how much lifesteal she gets, because once you start over capping on crit, that's when you get lifesteal. But either way, her Q healing, which also scales on lethality for some reason, now is this, okay, even greater base, greater scaling on AD, and scales even greater on AP, but no longer scales off lethality. So I really think they're trying to get her out of lethality building, from what it seems like. And then the slow is now even better. Wow, scales even better. Look at that. So she is getting more supportive. I kind of like this. I don't think support Senna's fun. Well, it's fun if you play it. It's not fun going against it. But if you're coordinated, if you're good, if you have catch out, I think it's really weak, ironically enough. It's strong if left unchecked. It's weak if you know how to counter it. So I actually think it's actually a little bit balanced, huh? Now that I say it out loud. Either way, the root is going up, which is crazy. The shield from R is going slightly up early, and then has a bigger AP ratio. Wow, so the shield is just better. I feel like Senna's getting kind of buffed from this, man. Now that Black Cleaver now always applies a stack on hit, this means Senna applies 2 stacks on auto and Q. Wow. I feel like that's more of a quality of life bug fix, but I think Senna's a lot fucking better. Holy shit. I mean, yeah, she's going to take a hit to her damage and her attack speed, sure. But I feel like she's getting so much to make up for it. This is actually kind of crazy. Wow. Skarner, I still don't understand how this champion does fucking good. Maybe I gotta play him again. But, like, bro, I feel like he sucks fucking ass. And he always have and he always will. I don't like his kit, man. Skarner isn't doing too well, so we're continuing to bring up his ability to tank and scrap with either jungle camps or top laners in the early game. Want to help his old Juggernaut player, so we're buffing his AD ratios. Wow. So his health is going slightly up, his AD is going slightly up, or not even slightly. By 3 is actually big for Riot standards this early. And then the bonus AD ratio on Q is going up by 15%. Maybe I gotta try Skarner now. He's a little bit better. Damn. Nothing crazy, though. Silas. Silas is basically one of the poster boy in pro play, so they're always gonna keep him around. Like, there's never gonna be a time where Silas is terrible. I think Riot's never gonna allow that, so let's see. After his recent change, Silas is in need of a little bit more power to get him in a good place. Now the players are building more health on him, like Roa and Rocket Belt, which is disgusting, and Cosmic Drive. We're making 2 changes, so they're further buffing him, which is crazy. So his base health is up by 25, which is kind of nothing. The passive is buffed slightly, so it's accounting for the damage he's losing. Because realistically speaking, when you build health items, you're not having as much damage. So they still want him to do damage, which is crazy. They want him to be healthy and still do damage. And then the W is slightly better base-wise by 10. Riot's favorite number. Cool, he's slightly better. And from what they're trying to do, it seems like they're just trying to make him last longer but still be a threat, which is kind of dangerous. But I feel like this guy is beloved by Riot because he's a really good player to watch. He has a lot of hype moments, and it's really good for pro play. So they're always going to make Silas good. Syndra. I don't really know where Syndra stands. I feel like she's not bad, but I don't know. I don't think she's too hard to use. The main bread and butter with Syndra is just landing a really big stun with E. And if you can't do that, you're kind of underutilizing the champion, but not enough to where you can ignore her. Like, I feel like she scales decently well. She gets a lot of AP, especially from her passive. I think for all intents and purposes, she should be good, but maybe it's just the community doesn't think that. Or maybe she is actually too hard and I'm just really good at her. I don't really know. I feel like Syndra was one of the terrors back in the day. If you were a good Syndra, you basically fucked anyone. And I don't know why that's the case anymore. But let's see. Syndra's mid-scope was pretty successful, making her early game less oppressive. But as a result, she's all from disappeared in pro play. Want to give her an opportunity to transcend the highest levels of play again. Wow. So they really want to see her back in pro play because, again, she's a high... I don't want to say octane, but she's a very good champion to watch. There's certain champions that are good to watch in pro, and she's one of them. So what are they doing? They're upping her damage by 10 base-wise. And again, this doesn't seem like a lot, but you got to remember that's cumulative because that's per orb. And at the minimum, that's a 30 damage buff. At maximum, I forgot what her max orbs are. What is it, like 7? 8? It's like a 70 to 80 damage buff per. I mean, it's okay. It's nothing crazy. Like, it's literally 10 damage, but it stacks up. But again, for an ult, it's kind of whatever. But she does have an execute on it, so maybe it's a little bit more powerful than we think. But that's only for late game, so... excuse me. We gotta see, because pro play values early game more than late. But slightly better, nothing crazy. So then we have Miss V. What are they doing to Miss V? I feel like she is not strong. Historically, Vi has been a champion that, even if appropriately balanced, found herself in pro play. Oh, the irony. Oh, pro play jail, sorry. These changes are intended to give her a little more power back without landing her in the slammer. So what are they doing? Her Q, which is her main ability. Actually, I wouldn't say that. Her W is pretty important too. Almost every aspect of Vi, if sufficiently done, and I'm saying this as compared to other champions, because you could say this about anyone. If sufficiently buffed, anyone's champion's ability is good. But with Vi, I feel like the bar's a lot lower because all of her abilities matter a lot, actually. So let's see what they're doing. Minimum damage is going up by 5. Maximum is going up by 10. Whoopee! Nothing crazy. More of the usual. And then we have Monkey Boy, the last champion on this list. So, what do I think of Monkey Boy? I will always say this. Wukong was very hyped. They took very long to do his rework. He came out, was busted beyond belief, and then he was smacked into the ground, and I feel like he hasn't recovered since. They did great with the idea behind his rework, though. I think, thematically speaking, they really played into the clones, and it's great. But number-wise, it was too OP. But Wukong is pretty cool. He's mainly kind of like... He's almost like Rammus in a way, but for top lane, but you still want to do damage. Like, he gains a lot of, what is it, only armor, I think? I think he used to gain MR, but they removed it. But he gains mainly armor, so he's really good. Like, I gotta play Monkey Boy again. I just feel like the problem is he just can't scale, and his ult is kind of lackluster. His ult feels like shit. Now, granted, is that because it's too good if you get it in the perfect scenario where you have, like, 2 clones out and you, and you're hitting, like, 3 people with your ult? Maybe. Or is it 2 max? I don't remember. But, you know, you could hit multiple people with your ult. It's a big knock-up. It gives you move speed. The only problem is the damage, and it's interruptible, but you could recast it. But I feel like they're trying to play this game of balancing his ult, where it's like, it's something that should be OP. I think his ult is the main thing that needs to be buffed to make him feel pretty good. Because his ult just seems kind of weak. Either way, what are they doing? Wukong is one of the simpler champions in the game and not driving everyone in pro play bananas. Bananas. So he's got plenty of room for more power. We're specifically playing up his sustained combat and ability to withstand incoming physical damage. So let's see this. So his bonus armor is going up by 1. But again, as I keep saying, it's cumulative because there's multiple stacks of this. And I think this goes up again to, and I haven't played Wukong in a while, maybe 8 or 10. I forgot what it was, but this is a pretty decent buff because it adds up. And then Nimbus Strike, the attack speed is going up by 5%. Again, nothing crazy, but Wukong's slightly better. I gotta try Wukong, though. I gotta try him into, like, a physical thing. I feel like he's really good laning in mid-game. It's just he falls off late game. So, it's kind of sad. And the main way you don't make him fall off, Giga buff his ult. Just make his ult good, he'll be a fun champion. Okay, now on to the items. What are they doing to Black Cleaver? I feel like Black Cleaver isn't too good, but let's see. We're softening some of Black Cleaver's stacking rules, which will make the item much stronger for some champions who used to apply 2 stacks at once. Black Cleaver no longer prevents champions from applying 2 stacks for basics and abilities that apply on-hit effects. Oh, okay, yes, that's just a straight buff. Okay. So Bleed. Oh, I'm gonna fucking hate this shit. So let's start getting into the ADC stuff. So ADCs, in my opinion, are in a very weird spot. And I largely think now, not only does it have to do with the culture of the bot lane, with the culture of how supports play the game, and what supports are picked, which are not really enchanters or tank supports. I think tank supports are the best. I think enchanters are really good too. But a lot of the times what people do, especially in lower elos, is they just straight up go mages. Because they're like, fuck the ADC, I'm playing my game, I don't like to support. How do you fix that? I don't really fucking know, aside from overbuffing the fuck out of tanks and enchanters. It's something they could do, I don't know if it's something they want to do. However, ADCs themselves are in a weird spot, and I largely think, right now, having played AD for a hot minute, I think that's because of the items. Now, I don't know if this is because I'm an old head. I don't know if it's because I'm stuck in my ways of building an old thing, but because they changed the AD items and the crit values and what gives crit and what doesn't, you know, with Kraken not giving crit and Bloodthirster not giving crit anymore, all these items not giving crit, it's kind of a weird spot where some champions, I feel like let's just say, for instance, like Draven, right? I feel like Draven obviously has good items. Yuntal is, I think, one of the best items they've added in a while, even though I think it's underutilized a lot. I think certain items, like especially Blade here, this is not used by many people. Mainly people in top lane, some jungle, some ADC. But it's like I can name the people right now. Jax, maybe. Yi, for sure. It's a staple on Master Yi. And then after that, it's basically the on-hit ADCs. Maybe Ashe, but you have Varus if he's going on hit. Kai'Sa if she's going on hit, maybe. Vayne, maybe. I already said Kai'Sa. Kalista, probably. But aside from that, ADCs are kind of fragmented, and their crit builds are, I don't want to say in the dumpster, but it just feels weird to build them. Like the item choices and the way in which you do them now, they wanted to make it more of a trade-off, and then they nerfed boots recently too across the board. Even though that doesn't, only affect ADCs, it still hurts us. But it's just like I don't feel like ADCs are that powerful, and they're in a weird spot because of how they build. And for some odd reason, static is still in the game, and that item fucking sucks fucking wiener. I hate static. But anyway, I've gone into that enough in the other videos, but I gotta see what they're gonna do, but I'm probably gonna disagree with these, but let's see. Blade of the Ruined King came out a little stronger than it should have for ADCs. I don't think that's true. Actually, I think it's somewhat true because tanks don't feel like tanks, and I've said that for a while. So we're bringing its power down and compensating it for melee users. Okay, well, I think that's good. As long as they don't nerf it for melees, I think that's fair. Blade should be specifically good when targeting health stackers, which it is. Not just a generically great start item, which I don't think it is because it has been nerfed in the past. It's not at its peak right now. Hence the reduction in base stats. So, it's going down by 5 AD, going down by 5% attack speed, and on-hit damage is now just straight up better for melees by 1%. So they're not nerfing that for ranged, which I think is honestly fine. Nerfing the base stats is whatever. I think it shouldn't be an end-all be-all over generic encompassing item. Which honestly, I just get this to have a decent early game. Like I get this if I just want to scale out the lane. So it's kind of like a comfort pick, but at that point you could do BT. But BT is more aggressive, I feel like. Again, this is good. It does its job for health stacking. You do fuck up tanks with this. So I don't fully agree in these nerfs, but I don't think they're horrendous. But the main issue is, what does Riot do? They keep nerfing it in little ways, and then you forget what they did previously, and before you know it, the item is weak as shit. So I don't think this is terrible, and they are giving 1% back to melees, which is basically almost essentially nothing, I'll be honest. Now again, I keep saying this, it's cumulative, right? This is on every single auto you're getting on hit damage. So after 3 autos, right, instead of doing 27, you're doing 30. And you're not just going to do 3 autos, you're going to do like maybe 5 to 10, right? So if you do 10, that's a whole difference of what? 10%? Am I right or wrong? I think it's 10%. Because it's 1% difference. Yeah, I'm not good at math. But this shit adds up, but it's really nothing. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it's really shit. But Blade's worse, god damn it. Oh my god, they're nerfing D-Blade too. Holy fucking shit. This might push people more to start Call, but I don't think so, but let's see. In an effort to chip away at ADC's lane dominance in the early game. What the hell? We're tapping down some of the early strengths of D-Blade. Solo lane ADC spends a large amount of time attacking minions relative to their bot lane brethren. That's somewhat true. And more consistently lane up against those who threaten to burst them. So by refining the durability of this item, we aim to make ADCs weaker in solo lane. So this is basically, I think, for mid. I think they're just nerfing this because Tristana, Lucian, Corki are a problem in mid lane. Wow. So not only are they nerfing the health by 20%, essentially, they're also nerfing the lifesteal by 0.5. This is crazy. They're double whammying this. I feel like with most of their other changes, they go like decent, like they do it like not too bad. For ADCs, they just pull down their pants and spank them straight on the bottom. Like, holy shit. There's no like tact with this. But either way, hopefully that's all the ADC changes. I know I wouldn't have liked them, but if it's just that, that's okay. So, death timers and death guards. I don't know what the fuck the second thing is, but let's see. In patch 13.20, we lowered death timers as one of the several adjustments to reduce snowballing. The change unfortunately created cases where players got killed but then gained advantages due to TPing back and freezing the wave. It's incorrect and frustrating to the player who's supposed to be winning. Nice. We'd like to lower the frequency of the above case and indirectly nerf teleports, so we're adjusting both death timers and respawn home guards, aka death guards. Oh, that's what it is. It'll take longer for the teleporting player to return to lane after respawning, while the player without it receives mitigation from the Death Guard buff. Since the 13.20 timers change likely contribute to snowballing being significantly reduced. We'd like to preserve that improvement despite high timers. So what are they basically doing? So they're just increasing the time across the board by a couple seconds. Does this matter extremely? Almost. I think this is a medium level change. It's not negligent, and it's something that a lot of people might gloss over, but it's similar to move speed and armor, or early game defenses, not just armor. MR works the same way. But I think this is low key a decently big change, but we really got to see how it plays out. These are changes that will really affect like the underlying core of League, though, of how the game plays out, how fast things snowballs and stuff. Again, it's going back to like move speed and stuff, where it's like this thing affects so many other things that it's almost impossible to fully realize it unless you have a really deep game sense. I think, but let's see death cards. So it's 60 death guards. It's 66.67, probably repeating. Decaying movement speed over 5 seconds to now decaying over 8 seconds. Oh, so you get it for longer. And then the range of the fountain for when death guard starts ticking down has been made more generous. Interesting. Huh. So wait, I'm confused. Huh. So it's kind of like they're giving some things back to if you just straight up die without TP, but if you have TP, you're not as good. So they're adding more time on for TP to not be as relevant, but they're also giving you more of a generous buff here to get back to lane if you're getting fucked. So they don't want you to be completely up the river without the paddle. And I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, Riot understands this is a big change, which is why they're kind of buffing death guards the way they are. This alone is pretty decently big, and they know they can't just have this alone, so they have to buff something else to kind of compensate. So you're not, again, completely fucked. So they did this. This is an interesting change. I can't talk too much about it because it's a very complicated change, and we gotta see how it works out. But let's see Arena. Marksmen have been dominant in high skill play, especially with the new toys they got in patch 14.15. Sadly, I haven't seen none of these because I haven't played Arena because, like I said, no mastery. Either way, in previous patches, I don't care. Alright, cool. That's Arena stuff. I don't really care. Riding Black Cleaver and Last Whisper. Okay, I don't care. Nice. That's all the Arena things. Damn. Dude, they're really going to make it its own game mode. It's crazy. Anyway, Swarm. Final city survivors, the invasion of the Primordians. Thanks to everyone who answered the call to fight. The power of friendship and anima, aka furry, prevails once again. And then it'll be leaving, like I said, on the 19th. So that's cool. ARAM. What are they doing to ARAM? In this patch, we're focusing on champions that haven't visited in a while by giving them some extra stats. On the flip side, we're bringing down some bonus modifiers on champions that don't need them. The one exception being LeBlanc, who is struggling to do anything. Cool, fuck her. But it's far too slippery. So what are they doing? So buffs, they're buffing Aurora somehow. Crazy. They're nerfing a bunch of other people. I don't care. Mythic Shop, this is changing. Cool. Bug fixes. By popular demand, champion mastery points have been added back to the loading screen. Yippee! This really doesn't matter, but it's cool. Bunch of bug fixes, and finally we get to the skins. So, I fucking hate Jace with a passion. Skin looks cool though. Sad he got the prestige, but that's cool. And then we have all the T1 skins. So let me take a look at these right here. So we have Jinx, which is that Jinx? Oh my god, wait, it is. What? Okay, so over the years, I think these skins have gotten way better. And let me just put this on the screen here so everyone can see it too. Here we go. We will put it right here. I think these skins have gotten really fucking good over the years. Back in the day, the world skins used to be just straight asshole. And they finally realized that, oh no, these could be good. So there's actually a lot of lore in these too, like especially with the background. You see like the moon here, the dragon behind Faker's champion, which is Orianna, which he chose. I believe this is Orianna, right? Because she's like doll-like. She has doll joints. In terms of who's getting the skins, this is like the part where I'm gonna say something completely nonsensical. Obviously, the pro players kind of choose who they want to get the skins, so this really isn't even Riot's fault, and I don't even want to blame the pro players because they want these skins for their champions, but just in terms of like who deserves it, and my personal opinion here, which hopefully people are here for that, I fucking hate Jace. Now, the skins themselves, I'll be honest, they all look fucking amazing. I like the red-blue theme. Like, it's pinkish red, and like blue lighting. I actually really like this a lot. Jace fucking looks amazing. Lee Sin looks pretty cool. It almost looks like the Versus event with what the fuck is the Yone skin? It's Nightbringer or whatever, Dawnbringer Yone, whatever the fuck. It's like that. It's similar to the Morgana skin in the Versus event with the Yone shit. It's kind of like that. There's obviously more red, but mixed with blue for Oriana. That's Bard, obviously. I think these skins look pretty amazing, and I like how Jinx is doing the pose. I think these skins are gonna be amazing. I think they're really good. The only thing I dislike is the champions therefore, but that shouldn't even be a dislike because the pro players choose this. I hope. But either way, the skins are really good. Sad Jace is getting the prestige, but whatever. I wish it was Jinx. But then we have Chromas, which I think these skins look really fucking good, man. I'm not gonna lie. The world skins are finally at the point where they're actually pretty decent. But that is basically the whole patch. So what did I think of this? Did they cook? Did they shit themselves? Let's see. I think they did a lot of non-game changes that are pretty nice. Actual balance wise, it's kind of whatever. I don't like them nerfing ADCs, so I'm honestly gonna give this one. They added a lot of buffs though. They didn't really nerf too much, and that the nerfs they did aren't crazy, aside from maybe these two, aside from D-Blade. But I honestly don't think this was too bad a patch. I'm actually curious to play a lot of these things. I think fucking Senna was probably overbuffed, but yeah, I actually don't think this is a terrible patch. Unfortunately, I can't rate it above a 7 because they just want to disrespect ADCs. So I'm a little vindictive, but I'll give this a 7 out of 10 Marc Merrills. I think it was actually pretty decent. And we made it under the hour. Yippee! But anyway, we'll see if I do another one, and I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope you guys watch me at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel when I'm on in the wee hours of the night. And yeah, I'll see you guys potentially in another 2 weeks when we get the next one. When Swarm's going to be done and probably nothing's going to happen except balances for pro play and stuff because Worlds is going to come up before we know it. Either way, hope everyone enjoyed. Oh, but before I go, also, we're really looking forward to what they do in 2025 because even though it's a bit of ways, right? We're almost there, but we're not there yet. But this is where they've said, and I don't know if this is going to be another fill but not support situation where they say it but they never go back to it. They said 2025 is going to be the year of League of Legends. Not Wild Rift, not fucking the card game, Legends of Runeterra, not all this other shit, not Valorant. League of Legends. We gotta see what the fuck they're cooking, and I hope they're going crazy. But when we're probably gonna start hearing about that or seeing that, probably around Worlds time, because then we're gonna go into well, actually, no, they changed it. We're only gonna go into preseason for like a week or two. So we'll probably honestly hear about it more in probably November. I assume when Arcane comes out in November, or around there, is probably when we're going to hear a lot of big news about the future of League. So I'm excited for that. But aside from that, that's pretty much it. I hope everyone enjoyed. 7 out of 10 Marc Merrills. Eee!